Okay, so continuing on with custom curtain wall panels, limiting the size of pattern-based families. So now, when designing complex curtain wall systems, the goal is to limit the variety of panels. The more variety you have, the higher the cost, because you have to create a greater number of unique panels. When you divide a surface, the panel sizes can vary quite dramatically. Although you do not actually have the ability to limit panel sizes, you could start to reduce the size and variety of panels by nesting curtain panels inside other panels. In the following exercise, you will learn how to nest panels to limit size variation. So let me just turn off ADCO's ping. If they keep asking me to log in, then they should send me a check. All right, so the first one, and I'm going to read through the directions. Start by creating a simple pattern-based curtain panel family. Use either curtain panel pattern-based or metric curtain panel pattern-based. Make sure the grid is set to rectangular grid type. And the grid is set to rectangular grid type. Select the 4 reference lines and use the Create Form tool to generate a planar surface. Well, I selected the 4 reference lines. Oops, I selected planar surface. I should do it again, but I could show you the steps without actually doing it. Select the 4 reference lines and use the Create Form to generate a planar surface. Well, I could create a form right there, a solid form and a planar surface, but I did already. That's the surface. By following that step, you could create the same thing. Now, similar to the previous exercise, place the hosted point on one of the edges of the surface and then draw a circle with a 6-inch or 150 millimeter radius on a point's work plane. Use Create Form to generate a swept profile on 2 edges to represent a mullion, as shown in the figure on the screen. So, excuse me, if you create a point element and make it visible and show reference planes always, well, when you place your point, you'll be able to extrude a circle. If you select the edge of the planar surface, you'll be able to extrude a circle to another reference point. And sometimes these reference planes, these reference points, don't behave, and they don't come in as Euclidean space vectors. That could be a pain in the butt. So you have to make sure that they're hosted. You have to make sure that they're hosted by the surface. That's the key. So if they're not hosted by the surface, they're only going to show the plane at which you're able to be constrained to, or you're constrained to. So see how it says placement plane not associated? You have to actually place it. If I place it, and it's show reference planes is on, but when you select it, and you notice you lose it, and you click it, you're like, well, wait a second, my reference plane is only in this XY, X direction. Well, you have to host it by the level, right? If you host it by that planar surface that you created, you'll get the option of going in multiple directions. So that's one of them. If I do another one, I put it over here in the midpoint of that line, and I select it, and then I have it hosted, and I show it always, not when selected. Well, now we have these 2 reference points, and this one is only when selected, always. So same concept as extruding it or sweeping it around these 2 reference planes. I selected this reference plane and drew a circle on that work plane, and then selected this reference plane, this reference line, if I could select it, well, you'll see it here. You'll see it here. If I draw a reference line from here to here, and I draw a circle, it likes to you see how the reference line actually affected the reference plane. You can't see, if I select a node, you see how it spun around to constrain to the reference lines, right? So if I drew a circle by setting this work plane, oops, I didn't set it. I drew a circle and I set this work plane. I still didn't get it. Let me set the work plane first. Set the work plane. Show work plane. And there it is. I drew a circle. Well, it's on that work plane. If I give it a radius of 6 inches, just click anywhere, I'd have it. So now if I selected the circle and held down Control and I hit the reference line and I created a form, create a solid form, you'd see it would follow the reference line. It would follow the reference line, and then you would have this this family curtain panel pattern, and it's called Family 94. So now, start another new pattern-based curtain panel family using the rectangular grid pattern. Another one. Select the 4 reference planes and use create form to generate a planar surface rather than an extrusion. Well, we've created the planar surface. It's in there. You can see it. If I can select it, tab through it. Well, there's the surface, right? And it's a curtain panel pattern-based template that we used. And when we created the surface, and I selected it, it knew what it was, and it created a form, and we created a surface form. It created a family called curtain panel. It's in the curtain panel family. So I extruded these 2 circles vertically and horizontally. Now, if you look, this form here, that's from the other family. So start another new pattern-based curtain panel family, again using the rectangular grid pattern. Select the 4 reference planes and use create form to generate a planar surface rather than an extrusion. Select the planar surface and click the divide surface tool from the ribbon. You'll divide the surface and set the UV pattern, UV grid by number. Set U grid to 2 and V grid to 2 as shown in figure 13.75. Well, the pattern itself, I select a pattern, curtain panel. When I created it, I divided it up into 2 with the UV grid. So if I was to do it again, it would waste time. You have to go back to the last exercise to see how to change the UVW coordinate system. Okay, you got to follow along. All right, so load the limit panel 1 family into the divided surface panel. So what we're in essence doing is I loaded this family, the family 94, with just this extrusion, into this family. So it's a nested family. It's a nested family. Now, we can load these into a host family. So there's three families that at work here. I got a project open. Project. I've got the first family I created with this swept blend, and then I have this family I created with this swept blend. I loaded this one into this one, and then I opened another family, a C13 limit panel project RFA. And as you can see, well, there's the UV grid, and it's divided up into 12. Okay. Now there's no pattern on it, but luckily, if you look, if we go down, I took the time to load all of them in. These came in with this family, the complete exercise, limit panel 1, limit panel 2, and then family 94, right, which is this one. So if we look at it, it takes a while to crunch the numbers, but it's going to apply that family to the panel, to the divided surface. Now if you look at it, it's just, I didn't save this portion. If I saved it, you'd see this piece. And we can, I can overwrite the one that's in there. I can load this into this project. And let's see if it changes. Override existing version and parameter. It's only this portion, but being that it's on every panel, it saves memory. I'm not creating a mullion around the entire square here. Well, I'm only creating the mullion in the upper, the right and the top. So it applies it to every panel surface, but that would mean we would double up on this portion if we had all 4 revolved around. And that wouldn't really, that's a waste of memory. There'd be 2 instances of the mullion overlapping each other. And it would have a problem with the schedules. In the schedule, you would have a double count. It'd be twice as many on the takeoff. And that wouldn't be good. So it's going to take a few minutes, but there, you can see how it's in there. Now, that being said, let's go and take a look now back at the patterns that we have at our disposal. Like I said, we have the limit panel 1, and these were already completed for us. So we put that one back up, and we'll see that one. And because I brought in just the one family, being that the other ones were nested within each other, it gives you the option of, it's almost like, it gives you the option of selecting either one. So that's where the limiting comes in. You have all these, you have one family and you have other families nested in it. You'll have the option of choosing all the entire array of nested families. Well, there's that one. Limit panel 1 with the limit panel 1 pattern. And then here's limit panel 2. And it'll take a second to apply to the divided surface. Now, I just want to show you one last thing before we end this exercise, because we're going to be moving on to using the adaptive component family. And if your job is creating conceptualized masses, you're going to have to review just like I do. Again, we all have our functions within the firm, within your firm. Now, I just want to show you something. It told us to divide the panel, the U grid and the V grid, into 2 by 2. And there's a reason for that. Because this family, without this one in there, if I take it out, this family here, this curtain panel, here, this is the U grid, the V grid. It's divided into 2 by 2. Okay, so there's a panel on this side and a panel on this side with one delineation line, U, and one delineation line, V. If I change this to 3, you would see now it's 1, 2, 3. But I only point that out because if you think about it, if we look at this, this limited panel project, and we count, ready? There's 12 divisions in this panel. There are 12, right, in the UV grid. Well, 1, which is divided into 2, 1, 2, 3. Let me zoom out a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's the math. It divided it. We applied a panel pattern to a panel in a family. We divided that panel up into a 2x2 grid. Then we loaded that family into another family, which was a pattern, a divided surface. And we applied that pattern, the 2x2 pattern, to that divided surface. And it came in exactly as it was supposed to, sized accordingly. If we changed the UV grid in the family that we created, the pattern-based family panel, and it was a 1 by 1 grid, well, we would have 12 of them. I'm sorry, we would have 12 of them. We would have 12. So keeping that is sometimes a bit perplexing. It's a bit perplexing. You have to understand how it's going to come in. It's not a problem, but if you divided this surface smaller than 2, then for every division of your host, you would incrementally increase the memory of the model and the complexity of the panel. This would get smaller if I divided this up less than 2. I'm sorry, if I divided this up more than 2, it would be inversely proportional and directly proportional to the surface. So, just experiment with that, because this wasn't an easy exercise. This wasn't an easy exercise. And we could even do that really quick. If I was to half this, UV grid in the limiting panel project, well, now it has to re-crunch all the numbers. Now, the pattern-based family, the panel, is divided up into 2. So I just divided this up into 6. So this is the pattern that I brought in. So if you think about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's directly proportional. But if I went back into the family, I'm sorry, it's this one. If I went back into this family and I looked at the surface and I changed the grid to 1 by 1, well, now when I load this into the project and close it, you'll see a difference. Just save it. Just load into project. And let's take a look at what happens. Override existing version as parameter values. Now you're trying to load shared family 94 from family 95, which already exists in the project because it's a nested family. Overwrite the shared subcomponent family with the Family 95 version. Overwrite the shared subcomponent family and its parameter values with the Family 95 version. Use the existing subcomponent family that is in the project. Overwrite. Actually, I did want to do that. It's make it a liar out of me. Let me actually go into, it might be easier. It won't let me edit the pattern. Well, here's the pattern divided up into 12, right? And like I said, well, this one came in with limit panel 1 and limit panel 2. I just threw these in. So let me take another look here. Hold on a second. Let me put this Family 95 back to the surface again. Hold on a second. And you'll see. I know this is a little convoluted. I apologize. But you have to experiment with it to get the pattern the right way. And there are multiple files that you're going to have to manipulate. So it's a process. It's a process. And it's not easy. It's not easy. As you can tell, and again, at this level, at the higher levels, it's almost, it's beyond your wildest beliefs. This is the study of space. This is the study of space. So this is going to take a while to apply, but you're going to see what I mean when eventually it does, and hopefully it doesn't crash. Alright, so it won't, because this computer's pretty powerful. So the next exercise we're going to get into is the adaptive component family. And again, this is hard. How you adapt to this is, how your behavior is when you're trying to do this is going to dictate how you adapt to the software. It isn't easy. It isn't easy. We've gotten this far. All right, so as you can see, it makes a big difference when you change the UV grid. It makes a big difference. It's going to have an impact. Make sure you know how much your UV grid of your family pattern. Make sure you know what increments it's been divided up into, because when it applies it to the divided surface of the host family, it's going to apply itself based on its panel UV grid. And if it's got a UV grid of 2 and the other panel, the hosted family, is divided up into 12, well then for every one of them you're going to insert 2 of these. So there's a ratio. There's a ratio. It's panel to panel. Panel to panel. I guess that's the best way of explaining it. There's a ratio. Alright, so that's a long way to go, and we're almost at the end of this exercise. And I do not want to just brush this under the rug. Like I said, if your job is massing, and your job is creating these shapes for conceptualization, or even for shop drawings, you're going to need to know this. You're going to need to know this. All right, so let's get to the adaptive component families later. Components, more components. I feel like I'm at Sam Ash buying stereo components. There's a lot to get to.